Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with another Total War Warhammer video. Once again continuing our missing series where we're looking through all the different races of the Warhammer universe that are currently in-game and seeing what's missing for potential DLC, FLC and the works. Today we're going to look at Bretonnia, a faction which has already received its rework and did receive some content in Warhammer 2 in the form of Repons as an FLC, but it's very likely that they could get something else in the future, as this was hinted by Creative Assembly staff on one of their live streams. So let's not waste any more time and jump right in. And just a little heads up once again, Keyhole went okay. I've got my second session with the doctors today, so by the time this video comes out, again, I'm going to be kind of bad with the responses at the moment because I'm still waiting to get like a few sessions done. But at least I can see from the comments that you guys have been enjoying this series, so that gives me a little bit of solace. But let's just jump into Bretonnia. Bretonnia as a faction is very much complete when you look towards units and so on by the 6th edition army book standards. Keep in mind they had no 7th or 8th edition book because, well, I have no idea, and it's what made Bretonnia one of the worst factions on the tabletop, believe me. Despite the fact that they had pretty good stat lines, they did suffer greatly for this. With that, they're really not missing any generic lord and hero options, though there could be one if they decide to go from a very early route. If Creative Assembly decide to explore some older Bretonian lore, which I believe was in 1 or 2, maybe even 3 White Dwarf magazine entries, they could easily introduce a brigand lord and something else with a different name for the hero option to have like a band of merry men. Yeah, there was some Robin Hood lore put into Bretonnia, but remember, this is Warhammer Fantasy, nothing was really original here. This would allow for a hero option which isn't heavily armored and isn't a spellcaster. It's got a bow, it'll be able to fire from a decent rate, obviously being able to buff up any peasant bowmen and so on for a different type of playstyle, or if you just want different type of things in your army. Because I completely understand that right now Bretonnia doesn't really have a lot of options, which again was a bit of a failure when it comes to them not getting updated in, I believe, 10 years or so. Yeah, it was really weird, but we'll talk about this with another theory that I've got in the future, later on in this video I mean. So I think a Brigand, Lord and Hero would work out very well, introducing some different aspect here. You could have a range hero, you'll be able to at least have some different options, and well, let's be very honest, the majority of our Bretonian armies nowadays are mostly focused on range, peasant bowmen and trebuchets, unless Warhammer 3 does change it and make the horses more viable. But I don't believe that the cavalry beta made them much better. So let's talk about something that really isn't a unit but is an extension of a unit. These are the archer stakes. Yeah, I know, it's something that we used to have in older Total War titles, but these would be permanently attached to those of the peasant bowmen, where you could set them there, and depending on how many bowmen you have is as much as you would be able to deploy, I guess. It would just be a nice thing to bring them back. These were very popular on the tabletop, and it's a shame that we just don't have them here. I guess, well, no, you can't say that it's not been in a while, because even Three Kingdoms had stakes. It's something that you would always see in Bretonian armies on the tabletop because peasant bowmen were pretty decent. They weren't great, but they were decent enough, and the stakes themselves were just kind of cool looking. It acted as deployable terrain, which, you know, we've been wanting for a while. Obviously, I'm not saying give this to every single faction, but give the stakes to just the Bretonian bowmen and keep it on theme. I don't think anyone else would need it anyway because you're going to be moving around and so on, and I don't know how much people would use it with Bretonnia, but I know that I would just really appreciate it, and I would like to use it myself. Truffle Hounds existed in the lore, and yeah, the name is what it is. It's a dog that they use for finding truffles, because why not put more stereotypes into the faction? The dogs themselves have been known to be quite aggressive, but in fact there's more lore on the truffle itself than there is on the hound. Though, with that being said, these could be hunting hounds for Bretonnia, which, you know, we've already discussed it for the Empire that they could make use of it. This is not another human nation. Humans have historically used dogs of war and so on, so why not for Bretonnia too? Especially if they're going to start adding in brigands and so on, which we'll discuss soon enough. It could bring a little bit of flavor. And yes, I get the irony because we were talking about truffle hounds and so on, but yeah, I still stand by it. I think it'll be kind of cool, and honestly, it would bring in some difference to the Bretonian faction, where currently everything pretty much looks the same when you put it into its own subsections. With that being said, I think that that's it when it comes to units. It's weird, this might actually be the smallest missing video that I'm going to do from this whole series. It's kind of weird. Though if I am missing anything, let me know in the comments below, as I could have missed something. I'm just going through a lot of supplements and going through a lot of white dwarfs, and I'm not seeing a lot of things. So we can now look towards legendary characters, and just a heads up, a grand majority of the legendary characters that are missing, well, either they didn't have models, or they did, and they were White Dwarf and so on, but they're mostly all Grail Knights. Well, surprise, surprise, but this is pretty much how it worked for Bretonnia. A lot of characters weren't really established to have different styles, and all the different dukes are kinda the same in a little sense. With that being said, I really doubt that we're going to get every single duke. Keep in mind that obviously Bretonnia has been scaled down dramatically, and some of the individual dukedoms now form parts of other provinces, which to me is absolutely bizarre, but I guess map constraints, it's only so large that they can make the map and so on. We already have 4 playable characters, 3 of them are dukes, so if anything, I'd say they could probably do 2 more dukes. If anything, I'd like to see Theodoric de Brion, mainly because he's a pretty cool character. You can see the model there, he carries a giant battle axe into battle, and the paint job was pretty cool usually for him. And for a second duke, there is Behemoth Beastslayer, who is the Duke of Bastogne, and if I recall correctly, when Creative Assembly staff were doing a live stream where they were talking about a possibility of a update to Bretonnian Warhammer 3, I believe this was during the time of Twisted and Twilight, the staff member, which I believe was Rich, said that he would probably like Behemoth Beastslayer, and you know, it's a regal character. Funny enough, that's the character I use as my Bretonnian Lord, because I mean the model looks cool, and it just always had a really cool paint job. The thing is, like I said, all the characters, well, the grand majority of the characters were very much the same. A lot of the lore was different, but it's very hard to distinguish that between a duke, another duke, another duke, another duke. And it's not like the Empire, where all the different imperial provinces have their own cultures and so on. Bretonnia very much stayed the same, so I just guess those 2 characters would be great, and that means, well, even then, it would be very scrunched up for Bretonnia. Maybe one of them could be leading a crusade into the lands of the north, maybe in the Northern Chaos Wastes or something like that. It's kind of hard to tell. We don't know what Creative Assembly would go with this. I mean, it's easy to speculate, but we could be massively wrong. Even if Bretonnia was in its normal size, it would still be very, very scrunched up. Bretonnia is much smaller than the Empire, but I guess with an expedition force it does work, and then you could have the choice of confederating whoever controls that, kind of like Malice does. Now, they could introduce a completely different character for a completely different type of playstyle, which is Bertrand the Brigand. Well, we've already mentioned some potential units earlier on in the video. Now, yeah, this is Robin Hood. I mean, it's just there. The 2 other characters next to him are Hugo le Petit and Guy the Gros. So, yeah, it's Little John and, yeah. Sorry, I'm really trying to take this seriously, but a lot of Bretonnian lore is very, very old. This is the issue. When the races started getting newer army books like 7th and 8th, that's when they started really hammering on the lore and doing it proper, whereas this is still in the jokey phase. But this could work out quite well as a brigand faction. One of the dukedoms could easily be his start position, or he could be a pseudo-horde, or even have like a secret start area. I don't know, it's kind of strange. But this easily introduces a character, which is a bowman and a swordsman, and then 2 legendary heroes, one which is quite melee, and the other one which would focus around buffing and also being a bowman. I don't know how this exactly would work. I mean, they could carbon copy the whole thing with just the Robin Hood story, which, I mean, I wouldn't put it past Games Workshop to suggest that, because, yeah. But even then, I don't think that this might be possible. I think that they'll probably just focus on the 2 dukes, if anything, mainly because Bretonnia was a free race, and that's the thing. I'd like to think that Bretonnia was a free race, mainly because so much of their stuff is essentially just the same animations and so on. Reskins are very prominent here because, hey, this is Bretonnia. It's how the faction was built. The kits themselves were very, very basic on the tabletop, and they couldn't really bring too much uniqueness. Like, let's be very, very honest. If you take away the Griffins and the Pegasus Knights and the Magic, it's pretty much just a standard Total War faction from an historical game, and that's how Bretonnia was always represented. So I don't think that we're going to see DLC, but maybe just FLC with maybe a rework? I don't know. They could do with a Crusade mechanic, but even then they kind of already have that with the Vows. It's a bit of a grey area when it comes to thinking about Bretonnia, which is why I wanted to cover this, because it's a shorter video. The other ones are going to be fairly longer too, and I kind of need a rest after the whole hospital stuff. There are some topics that we could have here though. So the first one being, if Games Workshop is smart, and this is knock on wood, you know, there will be cross-promotion with Warhammer the Old World, and obviously Warhammer 3 in the form of DLC, FLC, and so on. And obviously there have been rumors that there is a new line in the works when it comes to a Bretonnia overhaul for Old World, which means that it's very likely they could have completely new stuff, new units and so on, just kind of going into the army book and just seeing how many issues they had. I can already think of a few units myself. So if they get new models and Games Workshop and Creative Assembly want to keep Warhammer 3 as lively as possible with cross-game DLC and all that, well, you know, there could be a lot of potential to see some DLC. I wouldn't mind paying for DLC if it's completely new stuff. I know some of you think that this might not happen, but I think this could be very, very, very possible. And yes, I'm being kind of delusional and thinking could be possible, but hey, without hope, there might not be anything too cool coming around. I think this is possible. I've theorized this many times when it comes to DLC opportunities for the future, especially in my Discord, and yeah, I think this is possible. I honestly think this is possible, because eventually they'll run out of stuff, and I think they're going to want to milk this as much as possible, because for Total War fans, we're likely not going to get another fantasy title for at least 5 years or so, and for tabletop fans, we're likely not going to see every single army book come out at once, especially with new units and so on. So this is the best way to go. Just milk it for as much as it's worth as new stuff comes out. The last thing is something that we discussed in the Vampire Counts thing, but also makes sense here, which is obviously the possibility of the Red Duke and Malobord becoming legendary lords in their own right, but like an evil Bretonnia. In the Vampire Counts video, I said it could be a sub-faction or a hybrid faction and so on, and it could work very much the same way here, as what we know about Mousillon, it still acts like a standard dukedom, just there's a lot more mutants and so on. So what it literally could be is just having Mousillon as a playable place, which, by the way, the Red Duke is not the Duke of Mousillon. I just want to say that very quickly. It's actually the Duke of Aquitaine, but you know. So the way I would envision it would be just having them as a proper Bretonian faction with some undead mixed in there, but all the baseline mechanics would literally be the Bretonian stuff. To differentiate them, everything would kind of be reskinned and so on. And yeah, I know people don't like the word reskin and so on, but literally at this point, it would literally just be retexturing, recoloring. Everything would just be evil version of Bretonnia. The Grail Knights would be wearing black and purple, black and yellow, that type of stuff, you know, just like the Knights of the Black Grail and so on, because it would literally just be changing that. We'd get evil enchantresses, or switch those around for necromancers instead. Actually, that sounds better, to be honest. And you'd have your Bretonians getting their vows, but the final vow would be vampirism or something. The start position's already there. Yeah, it's one of the smaller settlements, but it's got a landmark already, so really you just have to change a few things around and you're golden. We've already seen some mods that do this very, very well, and I know that the Creative Assembly staff could easily do this too, because really it's just recoloring in most cases. The peasants would still be acting like the peasants, so they'd have the same voice signs. You would probably get the same way from the Grail Knights and the Knights and so on. Just put a voice modulator on them, just make them sound a bit more grim. Kind of like if you've ever played World of Warcraft, the Death Knights use the same voice signs, just with pitch changes and so on. This is as much as I can think of, and to be honest, I really like Bretonnia as a faction, but unless we see stuff that might eventually, this is a big might, come out in Old World, then yeah, I don't think that much can happen, which is a shame. It's a smaller video than usual, but hey, this was bound to happen eventually. Let me know your thoughts though. I'm curious to see what you guys think. I am still reading the comments and so on whilst I'm like after recovery and so on. I'm almost done with the sessions, I believe. Like, I think I've got a few more to go and then it's all sorted and then I'm right as rain, and that's going to be great. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below and let's start a bit of a discussion. But with that, my friends, we've come to the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, might I suggest giving the video a like or even subscribing to the channel, as it really does help us out. In the description section below are various links to different social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram and Discord. Also in the description section is an affiliate link with Element Games where you could buy loads of hobby-based products, not just Warhammer, for 10 to 25% off. Making a purchase using that link and also our special code, which is also in the description, supports the channel at no extra cost to you, which we think is rather cool. A big thank you to our patrons. Your support means the world to us. It's amazing that people want to help a small channel like us grow and get to a higher level of content. A big thank you to Gibraltar LUSC, Ryan Bertsche, Andrew Prince and Okro for subscribing to us at our Fane level. You guys are super cool. And a big thank you to Edward Yule, VS Vasan, Aaron Whitman and Shaggy for subscribing to us at our King level. Honestly, we can't thank you all enough. And lastly, a big thank you to all of you for liking, sharing and commenting on these videos. Honestly, it's because of you guys that the channel's been growing at such a great pace lately, so we can't thank you all enough. But with that, my friends, thank you so much for watching once again, and we shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.